few feelings worse than having bills come due when you know you can't pay them. It's even worse when those bills are for your mortgage or for your rent, but there are some steps you can take to work it all out. Joining us now in our studio to explain is John Paradise from Town & Country Federal Credit Union. John, thank you so much for coming in today. So what do you do if you find yourself in this situation?
Well, you know, I think at one point or another, I think all of us have found ourselves in a situation that is very stressful, and it does apply to mortgages and rent. And I think the first thing you should do is reach out to whoever, your landlord or your lender, and have that conversation. They're difficult conversations, and but the longer you let it go on, the worse it can get. It's one of those situations that if you don't take that first step and say, listen, I'm struggling, what can I do? You're going to find yourself in a much more precarious situation on down the road.
So I guess that would lead us to the first step to kind of keep that relationship in good standing with your landlord or whoever might be managing your property.
Yeah, make some offers, and I think that's part of finding a solution. It's not a straight line how we get to certain situations. It's sometimes bumpy, and people understand that there are bumps along the road, especially lenders, but often landlords do, especially if they have multiple properties. Offer to pay a portion of it. Some is better than nothing, and say, listen, I'm going to make a payment plan. I understand you have payments that you have to do, especially if you're dealing with a landlord, but offer to do something rather than nothing. And I think that that's a good faith first step.
And so if you do find yourself in this situation and you do follow that advice, what do you do so that it doesn't happen again?
Well, I think that's a much deeper dive, but
Yeah.
I think that really should make you do a wake-up call and make you take a hard look at what you're doing. What expenses are you doing? Maybe you can't afford where you're living. Maybe you have to, in the case of a house, maybe you have to refinance a mortgage. Maybe you have to cut back on some things. If you're, only the only person in a rent, maybe you have to consider getting a roommate. Some of those things that are hard steps, short term, but long term, will put you in a much better situation financially. And one other thing I have to include in there: if you're paying by check, don't send a check that isn't going to clear. That's going to cause all sorts of fees, all sorts of issues with either your lender or your landlord, and it's going to ultimately hurt your reputation.
All right, John, that is good advice. John,
tough challenge, for sure.
It is, and a lot of our audience probably finds themselves in that situation, so we appreciate your advice.
But don't be so embarrassed that you don't reach out.
Right, reach out. All right, John Paradise from Town & Country Federal Credit Union, thank you so much for
Always a pleasure.
your
Thank
advice.
you.
Yes. And we'll be right back.